Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the School District of Springfield Township Board of School Directors regular board meeting, January 17th, 2017. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading of the mission statement. The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high-achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. Roll call, Mr. King.
Mr. Chat. Here. Mr. Sales. Mr. Lapis. Ms. Nelson. Here. Mr. Rader. Ms. Sarsfield. Here. Dr. Taratuski. Here. Mr. Taylor. Here. Ms. Sapinski. Here.
Announcements. The board, at its discretion, may videotape all or any portion of public board meetings subject to the limitations set forth in Policy 006.2, broadcasting of meetings. Board meetings will be broadcast on Friday afternoon following the board meeting. Are there any public comments on agenda items? Approval of minutes. December 6th, 2016, reorganization meeting, board minutes I. December 6th, 2016, regular meeting, board minutes J. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Mr. Chat. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratuski. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Sapinski.
Aye. Approval of Treasurer's Report. Treasurer's Report D. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chat. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratuski. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Sapinski.
Aye. I did read. Did I read both? Okay. Sorry. Okay. So moving on to reports and information. District PTA report, Sharon Panera.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Panera is ill this evening, and so she sent me some information that she wanted me to share. Because she is the secondary PTA president, she asked me to share 3 items. One is that the 8th grade committee is in full swing, preparing for the dance, getting the yearbook together, as well as the yearbook party. There's going to be a meeting held on the 19th, which is Thursday, and she's advising people to look for the email blast and the Facebook post with updates about this information. She's also suggesting that a location is going to be found within the next week for a designer bag bingo that the PTA is planning. It sounds like a lot of fun. They hope to have this event in March. And she's saying that the funds raised are going to be set aside for the 9th through 12th grade classes at the high school in order to help offset some of their senior year fees, which can be very expensive. And finally, she's been in contact with an organization called Stall Just Call in the hopes of bringing an important message about underage drinking to students and to parents. The PTA is going to be underwriting that event. She's going to be working very closely with Dr. Rittenhouse and hopes to have more information about that event shortly. That's it.
Thank you. Reports of committees. Property Committee, James Taylor.
Good evening. We had the Property Committee meeting on Friday, January the 6th at 8:15. That was in the Administrative Conference Room. We talked about several things. Number one, I was selected and appointed for the chair for the 2017-2018 year. We talked about the capital projects for the new Enfield Elementary and high school renovations, which included the Plan-Con process, land development and worksite updates, the solicitor review and architect agreement, solicitor review and construction management agreement, revised timelines and budget for the new K-2 school and high school renovations. For the high school, we talked about the first phase for the stadium. We also talked about the second stage phase, which was for the HVAC units, controls and lighting, and a third phase, which will be the site upgrades for 2018, 2019. And lastly, we did talk about the new K-2 involving the Antonelli site. We also talked about other capital projects for the long-term capital projects for 2017. There was a township update that we will meet with the representatives there to discuss permits and requirements of the district. We also just talked about the environmental controls, designate a person for the Asbestos Hazard Emergency Response Act, and that's going to be on tonight's agenda for number 8. And we also talked about change orders for the bus garage UST project, which is number 10 on the agenda tonight. There were no comments from the public, and we do not have a next meeting day yet.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Thank you, James. Next, we will have the Academic Affairs Report by John Chapman.
The Academic Affairs Committee met on January 9th, 2017. At the meeting, there were 3 agenda items. The initial agenda item was to select the chairs. John Chapman was selected. Additionally, there was an update on the K-12 guidance curriculum review and the K-12 health and physical education curriculum review. Dr. Atkinson and Dr. Johnson led this discussion or provided an update. The process or discussion involved the recognition there were significant overlaps between the 2 areas, and there'll be monthly planning meetings will continue throughout the year. Develop an effective curriculum. Dr. Atkinson also plans to seek student input as a part of the planning and review process. The second agenda item involved data from the AP class participation scores. The data included enrollment in new areas available through the virtual high school and independent study. New areas included music theory, European history, studio art, micro and macroeconomics. There is a plan to further analyze the data, which with staff to explore how the AP exams are meeting student educational needs in the context of changes in how exams are viewed by colleges and in the context of the district's equity focus. There are also some non-agenda items that were discussed. Dr. Atkinson reported that there's an ongoing revision of their elementary report card. That report is ongoing, and there's a planned meeting planned to schedule with parents for the January 24th. Additionally, Dr. Atkinson reported that there are ongoing curriculum reviews in K-12 science and 11th and 12th grade English. A review of math curriculum is planned for the coming school year. Any questions?
Good, thank you. I believe that we have student council members here, and it's not on the agenda, but we didn't want to forget you, so come on up.
Hello, good evening. I'm Jason Gove.
And I'm Scott Rockman, and we have our past month review. All right. Student Council has been spending our last couple weeks preparing for upcoming events. We have 2 new events this year, which Jason will tell you about next, and we are in the beginning process of picking dates and planning the specifics of these events. Along with this, Student Council has undergone some structural changes. We recently moved our homeroom location from the LGI to another room in the lower house, and we are getting settled in. Also, Student Council has become more student-run versus advisor-run in the past. Our officers are stepping into leadership roles and are now taking charge.
In addition to Scott's remarks, Student Council plans to introduce freshmen into the club within the next few weeks. Also taking place in the next few weeks is Student Council's annual badminton tournament. The tournament will cost $10 per team and will take place on February 15th at 3 p.m. in the gym. Following this event, Student Council also plans to host both a bingo night and a wing bowl during the month of March. Student Council's bingo night will be hosted in the J. Freeze lobby and will be open to students, siblings, and parents. In regards to the wing bowl, each year Student Council will pick a charity for which we will donate the profits of the event. This year we are looking to donate to Ella's Retreat. Ella's Retreat is a nonprofit organization that provides lodging for families with children receiving proton therapy treatment at CHOP. The plan's beneficiaries are pediatric cancer patients and family members who must travel far distances for treatment. The goal is to reduce the mental, physical, and financial burdens that plague families who have children with cancer and enhance their focus on fighting the disease. Lastly, on behalf of all the members of Student Council, Scott and I would like to thank you guys for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the administrative report, Dr. Nancy Hacker.
Thank you, Mrs. Slapinski. First off, I would like to take this opportunity, since January is School Board Directors Month in the state of Pennsylvania, to thank all of the members of our board. Unfortunately, we have 3 members who could not be present this evening, but this is a perfect opportunity to pause midway through the school year to recognize the volunteerism and the hard work that all of our board members do. I think many people don't actually recognize how difficult a job it is being a board member, and obviously facing inquiries and concerns from community members and from having to do a lot of the difficult work and make many difficult decisions in order to help steer our district forward. And John, certainly through his report on academic affairs, and James through his report on the property committee, illuminated just a few of the many items that board members have to grapple with. And of course, in my presentation about the preliminary budget, that's certainly a major issue that board members obviously are thinking about and considering in their work. So I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of all of our staff here in the district to thank each one of you for your hard work and your commitment to the students. And I will say on a personal note that not only has it been an absolute pleasure working with this board, and I'll say more about that later, but I can attest to the fact that every single one of them is solely committed to doing what is best and making their decisions based significantly on what is best for students in the district. So I want to thank you all for that very much. And secondly, we have another piece of good news that I actually shared with the board last month that I would like to just repeat for the sake of the community. Many of you may recall when Joe Roy was here as principal of Springfield Township High School, he went on to become our assistant superintendent here in the district, and he served for the past several years as superintendent of the Bethlehem area school district. And Joe was recently given the distinction of being awarded the Pennsylvania Superintendent of the Year. I reached out to Joe as soon as I heard the news. I congratulated him on behalf of our entire school district. He's one of ours. He got his start, so to speak, here administratively, so we're all very, very proud of Joe. He certainly represents not only the Bethlehem area school district very well, but Springfield Township as well. So I just wanted to give a shout out again to Joe for all the great work that he's doing in the state. this point. Of course, the final budget does not have to be presented and voted on until June. So we have a lot of work ahead of us between January and that time of the year. The state does require us, nonetheless, to seek board approval for a preliminary budget, and I certainly stress the word preliminary because we do not have a lot of information at this time, although both Mr. King and Ms. Kerr have worked very, very hard and diligently to try to gather as much information as they can in order to be able to craft a preliminary budget. As always, the guiding statement behind what we do is our mission statement. It is fundamentally about the education and development of all of our students and trying to prepare them for the lives that they are going to lead once they leave us after high school. And so using the budget as our platform to pursue district goals is really one of the critical aspects of that mission. So these are the district goals served by the budget process, and you'll see that they serve a lot of areas in particular. First and foremost, obviously, we have an obligation to be able to provide a sound quality educational program for all of our students. But what we are finding, in addition to the academic rigors that they are facing as we prepare them for college or for careers beyond high school, is that we are encountering increasing mental and social health needs as well. So we have an obligation to really look at children holistically and not just to focus on academics, but to help support them in all ways for all of their needs. In order to do that, we also look at the child well beyond their academic life between the time they enter in the morning with the first school bell and when they leave us getting ready to board buses. We also look at the extracurricular activities in which they are hopefully going to become involved. I'm very pleased to say that our high school, we have over 85% of our student body, and that number keeps increasing, that are involved in one or more extracurricular activities. And again, holistically, we feel it's important for children to develop themselves outside of their academic life, to pursue perhaps athletics or a club, a music activity, an art activity, and so forth. We feel this really sets the stage not only for leadership in future life, but also to make them more well-rounded citizens as they learn how to work with other students in a non-academic environment. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about the progress of our construction projects, but not only do we plan into the future for what our needs are, but it's up to us to ensure, through the direction of Mr. Thorne, that we have safe and secure facilities every single day. There's a lot of work that goes into simple maintenance of our facilities. We certainly hear about it at our end if the heat is off in a building, even for a short period of time during the winter months. So comfort is one important aspect of that. And of course, again, over the winter months, even though we've been lucky up to this point, when there's snow and ice, we have to make sure that those walkways and drives are cleared very, very quickly. And people may not think about the back end of what it takes to really keep our facilities not only safe, but also well-maintained and up to date. And finally, one of the most important things, and any parent who has had children in any school system knows this, you want quality teachers for your children. So we have an obligation to try to attract and recruit good quality staff members in our district, and once they're here, we have an obligation to ensure that they remain up to date and well trained so that they are aware of current initiatives not only throughout the district but throughout the state as well. So this is our current budget status. As you all are aware, we are governed by Act 1 in the state of Pennsylvania, which sets the tax increase rate. It varies from year to year. It's dependent upon a number of factors. This year, that percentage is 2.5%, which actually enables us to go out for a $1 million increase. Currently, as you'll see from the numbers, we are at 5.93%, which is significantly over the allowable index of 2.5%. Even though we have applied for what are called exceptions. And the exceptions are granted based on exceptional costs that a district might have. One of those exceptional costs is the PSERS obligation, the Pennsylvania State Retirement Fund. The other exception to that is for excessive special education costs. We, however, even though traditionally we apply for those exceptions, we rarely use them. Our goal is to try to maintain the budget at the Act 1 index increase or less. So currently, by having a deficit of $1.377 million, that means our goal is to try to eliminate that deficit between now and June. So this is what the budget process typically looks like. The first thing that we do, and we do this early on, remember we are budget planning for the 2017-2018 school year, which is many, many months away. Nonetheless, starting in around October, just as we've gotten underway for new school year, we have to start planning fiscally for the next school year. So we begin to build our school budgets for the next year, our department budgets. By departments, I mean special education, curriculum and instruction, facilities, and so forth. We take a look at historical numbers. Where have we spent the dollars in previous years? And we try to project where will we have expenses down the road. Perhaps there's something new that needs to be purchased. There's a new initiative that we need to fund. So we take a look at that. We also have to plan, as you'll see in the green bullet up there, for staffing. So we take a look at current enrollments. We try to project, okay, now that we know we have X number of children in kindergarten, they're all going to be moving into first grade. But what if we have new enrollments as projected, for example, in our demographic study? How will we meet the need if we have additional enrollment? So many times we will put placeholders into the coming year's budget for at least 1 or 2 teachers in the event that we do have increases in enrollments at any of our levels. Oftentimes, due to large class size, the principals will come to me. They'll let me know about swelling class size. They'll let me know that perhaps they've experienced an uptick even in the middle of the current school year, and they'll ask for new teachers as a result of that. We also obviously have contractual obligations where we have to fund whatever those contractual agreements entail, which includes a certain level of salaries and benefits for staffing as well. Then we take all of the information that we have about any other revenue that's coming in. Historically, we don't get state budget information until the spring, sometimes even later than that. And as you'll see in an upcoming slide, we get very few federal dollars, so they really don't, unfortunately, add much to our budget. And finally, the last thing that we begin to take a look at as our numbers become finalized towards the spring are our health care costs as we get more information about dental, about medical, and so forth. We look at our PSERS numbers. What is our staffing going to look like since our retirement contribution to the state is based on staffing? And we look at other information such as what are our capital improvements going to be costing? This year in particular, since we've actually gone out for some debt, we've built the debt into the budget. So this is what our process looks like. Like I said, it usually starts sometime in the early fall and continues all the way up until we're ready to present the final budget to the board for voting. This just gives you an idea of revenue comparisons. As you can see, I mentioned before the federal dollars, very, very small amount. They usually go to what are called the titled programs, Title I, Title II, Title III. Those amounts typically don't increase significantly from one year until the next. In the middle, you'll see our state revenue. Again, unfortunately, we are one of the districts that does not currently receive a huge amount of funding for our budget from the state. We'll take whatever we can get, but it does vacillate from year to year, and it usually is never a significant amount in terms of the relative proportion of what the entire budget is. So as you can see, the last column, and it's going up ever slightly, is the amount of local contribution or local property taxes, and I'll speak to that issue in a moment. But as you can see, that's where the lion's share of the funding, unfortunately, must come from. There really is nowhere else. So this just shows you that same slide, but in a shortened version, our total district revenue. We anticipate, and again, these are preliminary budget numbers. These are not our final numbers. So the goal, obviously, is to reduce these. We have no control over the federal or the state dollars. We are going to hope, and I'll speak to this again shortly, that we will have some control over the local funding. But again, that's wait and see based on information that we've just heard. So this basically gives you an idea of where the money goes. Where does most of the budget have to be expended? And you'll see in the green and the blue that's in front of you, the two major areas here, a little bit over $26 million, close to $15 million. Both of those portions of the budget, which is the lion's share of the budget, are spent on salaries, which is the green share, and benefits. Two areas over which, unfortunately, we have very little control. Remember, we spoke before about contractual obligations with respect to salaries, and that includes movement along the guide as well as vertically for salary increases from year to year. And benefits, again, something we have very little control over. So most of the other areas of the budget, which are contained in this sector here, it's a little less than a quarter of the budget, have to do with supplies, equipment, payment for professional services, even debt, which looks relatively small compared to the rest of the budget. So you see these numbers are very, very small. It gives us very little ability to maneuver, really, the lion's share of our budget. So this slide, and I know the numbers are hard to see, is basically a look back over several years at comparisons of where the increases are. So going across, it actually starts out in this column, the first column here, 2014-15, 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. Keep in mind that 14-15 and 15-16 are final budget numbers. So we're not exactly comparing apples to apples because what we have now in the last column is really January numbers, not approved final budget numbers. And in 2016-17, that's the year we're in currently. So these are the numbers that we have so far for this current year, but they're not our approved final expenditure numbers. So you can basically take a look across, see where the numbers are going. What the green, the red, or the black represents is what portion of the total budget that number is. So you can't compare one year to the next. The correct way to look at this is that even though $26 million in salaries is higher than the figure from the previous year, it actually is a lower percentage of the overall budget this year than it was last year. And that's what these numbers are designed to show. So anywhere where you see green, what you're seeing is an overall lower percentage of the budget. But what you might also notice is that some of these numbers in this last column, which is our preliminary budget, are either close to or actually less than some of the categories, we call them object codes, from last year. So for example, property services, which is mostly impacted by Mr. Thorne's budget, is actually slightly lower in terms of the future planning than it was last year. Some of the numbers are higher, some are just about the same. So our supplies number, for example, is actually quite similar, almost exactly the same as what it was last year. What that shows you is that overall, even though the budget is about $1.5 million over what it was last year, this current year, when I say last year, it's actually the current year that we're in, it shows you that we are very, very mindful of historical patterns, looking at the past, what we needed, what we spent, and using those to help with our projections for current years. So these are some of the major expenditures which we may be able to anticipate for next year. As I mentioned, new staffing is a critical area that we always look at. Mr. King has actually requested for the past few years a transportation manager to more or less be under Mr. Johnston's wing, learn from him to help manage some of the issues that we face, not only in the routing and scheduling of the buses, but also to handle some of the concerns and questions from parents that often come. This year in particular, because we had some staffing issues in the transportation department, Mr. Johnston actually was out doing bus runs at the beginning of the school year, much to the consternation of many of the parents who needed to talk to him about questions or concerns that they had. But he was out there actually driving the school bus because we didn't have enough staff at the beginning of the year. So we're looking at the possibility of adding a transportation manager to help manage that department and be a little bit better in terms of our public service. As I mentioned before, our students, we are seeing increasing mental and social needs from students from kindergarten all through 12th grade. I was out at a superintendent's conference last week and learned it doesn't matter where you are superintendent, whether it's Arizona, California, Nevada, New York, Connecticut, or here in Springfield Township, we are all across the board identifying many more emotional and mental health issues cropping up in our young populations. It's a very scary thing. So we are looking at the possibility of someone who can specialize in helping our children with coping behaviors and helping our teachers with strategies as well to assist them. And then, of course, there's always the possibility as we begin to see numbers for next year that principals will again come to me and say that they have increasing enrollments and that they would like to add staff. So we always build in a few placeholders there. For the past couple of years, Mr. King has been building in money into the budget, the same amount each year, which proportionately becomes less and less over time. He's on a 20-year plan for replacing our bus fleet. Obviously, no one wants their child riding on an aged, failing facility. Fortunately, ours have all passed their inspections, but they are getting older. So we're starting with the oldest ones, and we're beginning to replace a number of those vehicles every single year. So there's money built in. Debt service, of course, especially with our projects, we've gone out for some debt, an initial $10 million, and then a secondary $10 million bond for next year to help finance our construction projects. So the cost of paying for those, as well as other debt that we have incurred over time, goes into our debt service amount that we'll be paying off this year, and those increases. Healthcare, as I mentioned before, obviously we have increases there, but between now and the spring, we're going to hopefully be trying to we'll be trying to negotiate those and trying to get those figures down. And then, of course, our retirement obligation continues to increase. Unfortunately, they're still at pretty significant rates. A little over 32% this year of our salaries goes out to PESers. Pretty significant, so we'll be dealing with that. I mentioned before about property tax and the revenue that we get. As you saw, approximately $48 million in the upcoming budget that we anticipate getting from property taxes, unless the proposal that was introduced into the legislature by State Senator Argall actually gains traction and passes, and it looks like right now it has a lot of support in both houses of the legislature. And what his proposal essentially calls for is elimination of the property tax, which I'm sure sounds initially very welcoming to a number of homeowners. The difficulty with that from two perspectives is it does increase the personal income tax from 3.07% to 4.95%, which is a pretty hefty increase. And it also increases the Pennsylvania sales tax for all residents on everything that they buy that is subject to that tax from 6% to 7%. So obviously we don't know what that means yet. We don't know how much revenue that's going to generate. For school districts, it's a very scary proposition because not knowing how much that is going to generate, and so far no one has been able to answer the question of how much revenue can school districts expect from those two taxes. we are very concerned about that. For districts that have a number of commercial properties, businesses, corporations, and so forth, this is very significant because right now they pay property taxes as well, some of them in the millions and millions of dollars. So districts that have large corporations located in their districts stand to lose a significant amount of money. But right now, unfortunately, we don't know. It hasn't yet passed. We're waiting to see what's going to happen. Our solicitor, Mr. Sultanic, has been advising all the districts that Fox Rothschild represents to make sure that we bring this up in contract negotiations discussions with our associations so that they're well aware that anything that we put into the budget is at risk as the result of not knowing exactly what that revenue is going to be. So I thought it was important to at least highlight that we're in a state of flux right now. We'll continue with our budget planning as we've done it in the past until we hear differently. And so just to wrap up, what the budget really represents is a balance between what everybody wants, what everybody believes they need, and what they believe are the priorities that should be established for the district. So some people want more than others, some people want less than others, and we recognize that, and we try to seek a very mindful balance when we craft our budget. We always have our students at the forefront of what our priorities are, but we also recognize that we can't give everyone what they believe their children need. So we do the best we can under the circumstances, and hopefully by the time I come back before you at the end of the school year in June, we will have crafted a solid budget that takes all of these items into consideration and hopefully eliminates the deficit that you saw before in one of the earlier slides. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the board members to see if they have any questions before they end up having to vote on the preliminary budget process. Anyone in the audience? Okay, thank you all very, very much. Thank you for your attention, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
We're just going to wait just a minute to, before we move on with new business. Mr. Walter Lapidus was not able to join us for the board meeting this evening due to a health issue, but he was going to try to call in for our first motion. So if we can just wait a minute or two.
Yes, I can wait.
He was waiting to hear from you, so.
Walter.
Hello, there he is. Hello, Walter. Can you hear me? This is Gretchen.
Hello, Gretchen. I can hear you. This is Walter.
Great.
How are you?
Good. You're on speakerphone here at the board meeting, and we're getting ready to move forward with our first motion.
Okay.
Okay. Number 1, re-election of superintendent of schools, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors re-elects Dr. Nancy M. Hacker as superintendent of schools of the School District of Springfield Township effective August 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2022, subject to the contract between the district and Dr. Hacker, and further subject to the official motion to elect prepared by the district solicitor. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Aye. Mr. Lapidus.
Aye.
Ms. Nelson.
Aye.
Ms. Sarsfield.
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor. Aye. Ms. Slapinski.
Aye. Congratulations. Oh, We worked it out. I'm going to talk first. Okay. So I am going to speak on behalf of the board, but then I will let all of you chime in if you wish. We so greatly appreciate the ease in which we were able to come to this agreement with you. We have a very straightforward contract, and we are so excited. We're thrilled to have your outstanding leadership and knowledge guide us and guide the district for the next couple years. We have a lot of work to do with our construction projects, and of course, we're going to really continue to focus on student achievement. And you're the one, and we're so happy that you're staying with us. So thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you.
If anyone else would like to. Okay.
I hope I can get through this. I really didn't think I'd be this emotional. But it's very difficult for me to succinctly express my gratitude to Gretchen and Kat, who were really responsible for approaching me and for asking me to take on the responsibility of leading the district through the next several years. I'm deeply honored that you came to me and that you were willing to have me continue serving in this role. I will tell you that one of the greatest pleasures of my career has been serving the students of Springfield Township. This is a fabulous, wonderful, wonderful place to be. We're fortunate to be blessed by a fantastic school board that truly is committed to whatever it takes to support our kids. We have an ease of relationship with STEA and our support personnel, which have made labor negotiations a pleasure. We have a wonderful solicitor from Fox Rothschild. All of the solicitors and the attorneys that we work with are very, very helpful to us in terms of all of the aspects of district operations. I can't say enough about my administrative team who gathered together at 4:30 this afternoon so that we could share some fellowship and camaraderie as we broke bread together. We all contributed food to the event, but that's the kind of team that we have, and that's the kind of team that gets things done. They're self-starters, they're flexible, they're creative, they're willing to take risks, and they're willing to roll up their sleeves and get the hard work done. And as a result of that, we've been able to make a lot of strides in this district over the past 4.5 years in so many different areas. I'm not going to go into great length and detail about all of them, but you know that we've had a stable budget over the past 4.5 years, the lowest increases in the past 13 years. We've made great academic strides. Our high school continues to be noted as one of the top high schools in the state of Pennsylvania and even in the nation in U.S. News and World Report. We've introduced any number of courses. We've eliminated barriers to access to courses at the high school, so all students equally can take whatever advanced courses they're interested in, as long as they have the motivation to pursue rigor. We've initiated a wonderful technology initiative that has put laptops and iPads into the hands of every child in this school district. They're taking them home, they're utilizing them, and they're learning how to engage in a very different, real way with the technology that they're using, and that was a huge initiative. And we're looking to the future. We're looking to explore virtual reality and spheros and maker spaces. And again, when I go to a conference and I hear other superintendents talking about starting to implement those things, I beam with pride knowing that my principals and my administrative team have already implemented those things and have been working on those for the past several years. And you as board members and community members and administrators saw that when we brought elementary school children from Erdenheim here last year to demonstrate the wonderful work that they're doing with their Chromebooks. As I mentioned, we have excellent labor relations with our associations in the district. And finally, I just want to call attention to something that I'm extraordinarily proud of, and the board should be as well. If you recall, you approved 6 goals of educational equity, which really are the underpinning of all of the work that we do. We truly believe and have a passionate commitment to the belief that all children can learn and can learn at high levels. And that has fundamentally changed the way we are doing the difficult and challenging work that we are now doing in the district. We have increasing numbers of children whose native language is not English, increasing number of children, as we mentioned before, facing learning disabilities, social and emotional and mental health needs, and we are placing more and more of them in our regular classrooms. We are not shuffling them off down the hall to specialized classrooms. We're bringing them in with their non-disabled peers that they can learn and have access to the exact same curriculum. And the percentage of students who now spend more than 80% of their school day in the regular education environment has doubled over the past 2 years, from 30% to 60%. And that's the result of our inclusion initiative and our co-teaching work that's being done by our staff members. So they all deserve commendations because that work is not easy. It's extraordinarily challenging to meet the needs of all students. And we have a lot more to do. So I'm happy to be able to be here over the next several years to help work with our staff to continue those efforts. So again, I just want to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all of you, to the wonderful community of Springfield Township, to our staff members, and most importantly, to the wonderful children that we all serve. Thank you.
I see that Judge Haas is here, and I think we're going to be doing swearing in.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, but my emotions got the better of me, and they still are. But I would be very remiss. This is just like the Academy Awards, where you're so caught up in the moment, you forget to thank those who are nearest and dearest, but my husband, Michael, is here. And I just want to thank Michael for all of his support. Sometimes we're like two ships passing in the night, and we have to have a lot of patience and understanding of the work that we both do in order to make it work. So Michael, thank you for all of your patience and understanding. And even though they could not be here, I want to thank our children, Jennifer and Jared and Jamie, and my grandson, Logan, because this means a sacrifice to all of them, because the time that I spend here means that I can't always be with them, and they understand that. They've been supportive throughout my entire career. They're the loves of our lives. They mean the world to us, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that they're willing to allow me to take this work on. So thank you for the time that I will have at various opportunities to be able to spend with them.
I was going to start playing music. You know how they start playing music?
Cut her off. I only get this opportunity once every 5 years.
It's all good. It's all good. We're all going to be crying soon, I think. Okay, so I think we can move on to the swearing in now. Swearing in of the superintendent with the Honorable Judge Richard P. Haas.
Let me first say that I am a resident of Springfield Township. Walter, are you still there?
I am, but is it okay for me to hang up?
Yes.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Feel better.
Congratulations, Nancy.
Thank you. Feel better soon.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, next we'll be moving on to number 2, personnel. Personnel attachment. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: administrative personnel, certificated personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, extra pay for extra responsibilities, extended school year, conference workshop attendance. Is there a motion? Is there a second? I think it was a tie. Any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 3, approval of the 2017-2018 Eastern Center budget. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the resolution for the 2017-2018 general operating budget between Eastern Center for Arts and Technology and the School District of Springfield Township. Is there a motion? Motion. There's a tie there, too. You got that?
I'll be the second. Okay. I can be the second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 4, 2017-2018 school calendar. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the 2017-2018 school calendar as per attached, attachment W. Is there a motion? Motion. Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 5, adoption of 2017-2018 preliminary budget. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the adoption of the 2017-2018 preliminary budget and authorizes the administration to file for Act 1 exceptions. Attachment X. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 6, Policy 103 revision. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the suggested revisions to Policy 103, non-discrimination, Attachment Y. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
I just have a question with regard to process for this. I know on policies, we often have a first read and a second read. Because of the revisions, are we subject to that for this policy, or?
Second read is only for development of a new policy. These
Okay.
are revisions, and we're required to submit them to the Office of Civil Rights by February 1st, so we're okay.
Okay, all right, good, thanks.
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 7, approval of Act 80 service agreement. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the proposal for Burke 1 in the amount of $780 to complete the Act 80 filing of corrected school district code reports to the PA Department of Revenue. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr.
Aye. Number 8, approval of addendum to the designated person contract, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the extension of the contract between the School District of Springfield Township and Environmental Control Systems through June 30th, 2020. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just had a question about what this is for. What contract, what does this cover, this contract?
We're required under the law to appoint an environmental specialist to deal with hazardous materials, specifically asbestos. There's a couple of reviews a year. Anybody has any kind of a question regarding our asbestos program, they can contact this person.
Number 9, approval of honorarium. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the honorarium of $2,000 plus expenses to Ben Mickelson for his author visit to Springfield Township Middle School on Tuesday, February 7th, 2017. Is there a motion? Second? That was one. Karen was second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 10, bus garage fuel tank replacement change orders. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves Warren F. DeLong, Inc. to perform all work associated with the bus garage fuel tank replacement project change orders. A, change order number 1, for items or tasks identified in line items of bidding documents, but specific quantities were unknown until project was completed, in the amount of $14,839.65. B, change order number 2, removal of unknown contaminated soil that was uncovered during excavation, in the amount of $11,261.96. Eustace claim has been filed for reimbursement of funds. C, change order number 3, replacement of defective emergency fuel stop bottom for fuel islands as required by code, in the amount of $3,500. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about B for a minute. I wasn't part of this conversation, so if you could just, if anyone has any information as to how we did not have a good handle on the contaminated soil that was uncovered during excavation, was that a problem with the surveying, or like how did this come up during construction that it wasn't on our radar beforehand at all?
This is at the fuel tanks in the bus garage area, and this has been going on for years. We've actually been dealing with, for many, many years, the fact that there has been underground leaking. We're not quite sure exactly where it came from. It could have been from the gas station next door that seeped into the ground, and so we've been in the process of removing the fuel tanks and replacing them as the result of what was uncovered there.
So when the original scoping for this project was done, was there a surveyor or anyone who did any kind of, you're saying this has been going on for years. I'm just trying to figure out if it was a misstep by the original.
It's soil that's uncovered once you start excavating the site. You had to dig the old tanks out first, and then you're not entirely sure where on the site you may run into contaminated soil. So after they started digging the tanks out, then they realized that, wait a minute, we got an issue here. So now the soil needs to be removed, taken off-site, and then additional soil needs to be purchased and then refilled.
That's why we're filing for reimbursement of these funds.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Payne.
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Teratuski. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 11, Memorandum of Agreement, STEA, Severance Payment Notification Date, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the Memorandum of Agreement between the Springfield Township Education Association, STEA, and the School District of Springfield Township regarding the required severance payment retirement notification date for the 2016-2017 school year, being moved from February 1st, 2017 to February 17th, 2017. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Teratuski. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. Number 12, Memorandum of Agreement, STEA Early Retirement Incentive Program, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the Memorandum of Agreement between the Springfield Township Education Association, STEA, and the School District of Springfield Township, offering an early retirement incentive program for the 2016-2017 school year. Is there a motion? Motion. Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Nelson. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Teratuski. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Lipinski.
Aye. I think we do have someone who has signed up for public comments on non-agenda items. Do you have the? Eileen Kavanaugh? Hi.
I trust this means 5 more years of fun school closing messages.
I'll do my best to keep up my poetry skills.
It makes getting called at 5:30 in the morning worthwhile.
If you could just say your name and address for the record.
My name is Eileen Kavanaugh, 203 Redford Road in Orland.
Thank you.
I have never done this before. I don't even know if this is the correct forum, but I have a lot of girls with a lot of interest in playing volleyball for school. I coach CYO, and they're very disappointed that it's ending. So I wanted to propose a volleyball team for next year. Is this the correct place to do such a thing? And I don't know. We started to get a list together of everyone who's interested, but that's just people I know. The girls didn't take it to school yet.
Is this high school, Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Okay.
At least high school.
Okay, let's start there. The best place for the girls to go, and I would recommend that they do so, is to speak with Mr. Payne, the athletic director, Jason Payne. I'm going to speak with him tomorrow, let him know that you came before the board and that we were at least interested in hearing about your request and the interest on behalf of the girls. Generally, there are a few things that have to happen. Obviously, we have to determine how much interest there is, how widespread the interest is. There's also, of course, the issue of funding. It just so happens, you probably heard through the last 2 motions, that we're going to begin negotiations for a new contract for the teachers over the next couple of years. And one of the things that always comes up during contract negotiations is whether or not we're going to have any extra pay positions. So it's always possible, and this is an ideal time, that the Teachers Association will want to put an additional position or 2 into the contract. And if we determine that there is enough interest to field a volleyball team over time, then that may be one of the positions where we would look for a coach and fund it through the contract. So you're kind of at the right time in order to be doing that. I can't guarantee anything. Again, it's always based on interest, and that's from year to year. We never guarantee that even if we have sufficient interest one year, that there will be similar interest the following year. But we're always willing to look into another activity for our
Right.
students.
Well, I had a lot of 7th, 8th graders on my team, so they're going to be going into the high school.
Terrific.
And I did hear that one of the teachers was interested in coaching. I don't know who it is, though.
Well, that's step 2.
That's step 2. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming. Future meeting dates. School board meeting, Tuesday, February 21st, 2017, 7 p.m., Freeze Memorial Lobby. Interim board meeting, Tuesday, February 7th, 2017, 7 p.m., Freeze Memorial Lobby. There is a note that this interim board meeting on February 7th will be tentative.
We also have a scheduled Finance Committee meeting on January 25th at 5:30 in the administration conference room.
I'd just like to say I'm going to sleep easier tonight knowing that we will have a superintendent that we all know and love moving forward for the next couple years. So again, thank you very much, Nancy.
And I'll sleep easier too, knowing that it's been voted on.
So with that, everyone, thank you and have a good night. Motion to adjourn.